Jagrata. The essence of real spirituality, real spiritual growth, doesn't take place until one realizes that all of life, every moment of life, is about spiritual growth, is about liberation, is about freeing oneself. As long as it's just a thing you do with some part of your time, on some particular day, some particular hours, really nothing much happens. People try to balance their lives. This amount for family, this amount for finance, this amount for religion, this amount for this or that. It's nice, but it really doesn't open up inside to the levels that a human being is capable of. A human being is capable of feeling God directly, not believing in God, feeling God, experiencing overwhelming joy and bliss and guidance and just light, pure, real. Just like you feel love, just like you feel anger, just like you feel attraction or repulsion. These are real experiential things that you feel inside yourself. You can likewise feel spirit, feel that energy, that pure ecstasy and joy overwhelming you all the time. And that is spirituality. Spirituality is about spirit. It is how to come into tune with, how to open to, and how to experience a direct connection inside yourself. So what has that got to do with everyday life? The answer is everything. Absolutely everything. There is no greater teacher than everyday life, every single experience of everyday life for your spiritual growth. Nothing can come close. Why? It's kind of neat. You have to understand the layers of your being. Obviously, you have a physical layer, your physical body. But you know that you also have emotions and thoughts and things going on inside of you. Sometimes you wish you didn't, but they are going on in there. And they're noisy and they're active. And they can be peaceful, they can be tumultuous. They just go through all these changes. That's your physical body, and then you have your psyche, or your energy body, call it whatever you want. Behind that is you. You, the being who's in there, the person who hears your thoughts, the person who feels your emotions, the person who looks through the eyes. Your essence, your being, the self, the soul, call it whatever you want. It's you. Words don't matter. Words are labels we put on things. They are not things themselves. If you want to deal with spirituality, it's the realest thing there is. What are you? Who is in there? Who is experiencing the emotions? Who is experiencing and listening to and being influenced by the thoughts? Who is looking out through the eyes? That is you. That is your essence of being. That is where spirituality comes from. It doesn't come from your thoughts. You're taught all these thoughts, you're taught how to believe, you're taught what to read, you're taught so many things. Those are thoughts. They can come, they can go. You can believe, you can not believe. Who doesn't believe? Who does believe? That's where the focus should be. Who is the indwelling being that can decide to believe or decide not to believe? You can change your beliefs, but you can't change that being. That being has been the same since you were young. When you were little, you saw your thoughts. When you were little, you looked out through your eyes. Who did? You did. You are always in there. Even when you sleep, it is you who watches your dreams. When you wake up, you know you saw them, even though you were asleep, even though your body was asleep. The indwelling essence of your being, that is what all of true spirituality is all about. It is about coming in harmony and balance with yourself, your true self, which is just you. It's not something you read about. It's not something you study. It's you. Who is in there listening to your thoughts? Who is in there feeling your emotions? Who is in there when you get scared that is experiencing the fear? Who is in there that when you feel love and attraction, or you feel anger and repulsion, who knows that those things are going on inside? That is the innermost essence of your being. So basically, if you really want to grow spiritually, you have to come back in harmony with that. Well, how do you get out of harmony with yourself? You are yourself. We just said you're in there all the time, experiencing your thoughts, experiencing your emotions, and looking out through your eyes. So why is that not enough? Because what happens is you become so enthralled, so hypnotized, so interested in your thoughts that you forget yourself. You become so overwhelmed by your emotions that you forget that you're the one who's experiencing the emotions, and instead you just get lost in the emotions. You forget that you're the one who's looking out through the eyes. That has absolutely nothing to do with the outside, nothing. You're not made of atoms. You're the spiritual being who's looking out through the eyes. Yet you become all attracted and attached and interested in the things that are going on outside. And all of this involvement, call it, in your thoughts, in your emotions, and in the physical world around you, draw your attention to such a degree that you literally forget yourself. You become so involved in all of these objects that you forget the subject. Spirituality is about reversing that. Spirituality is about remembering the subject and not being all that interested in the objects. Not that there's anything wrong with the objects. And they all get all weird, telling you right, wrong, this, that. And so your mind gets all involved with all these rules and all this stuff, which just more binds you. There's nothing wrong with objects. They're all part of creation. They're part of what was made. But they have nothing to do with you. Nothing. They're things you look at. They're things you feel. They're things you think. Who are you? True spirituality, true depth of inner growth is about finding self. Is about coming back into harmony with the essence of your being. Why? Well, it's self-evident. If you don't know yourself, how can you know anything? You end up getting lost in your thoughts, which come and go. They change all the time. For God's sake, your thoughts even argue with each other. What's nice is that you're in there watching them take both sides of the argument. So at some point you wake up and you say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't want to live a crazy life like everybody else does, just all caught up in the thoughts and all caught up in the emotions and all caught up in the constant change that takes place in the world. I would like to know who I am so that I could feel some peace, I could feel some harmony, and I could actually have the right to live my life instead of having my life lived for me by being dragged around by all these constantly changing emotions and all of these diverse, conflicting thought patterns and a constantly changing world. The world will never stop changing. It's always been changing. There's nothing you will ever do to stop the world from changing. And when the world changes, your emotions change. And when your emotions change, your mind changes. And when your mind changes, your emotions change. And then you try to make the world change. And where are you in all of this? You're just lost in this sea of constant turmoil, constant change. So again, spirituality is very simple. It is about coming back into harmony with the innermost essence of your being. As you come into harmony with yourself, how? That's the funny part, because it's so easy. By not getting all involved in your thoughts, by not getting all involved in your emotions, by not getting all involved in the constant sea of change that's taking place outside. You maintain your awareness of your innermost being by focusing, concentrating, contemplating, meditating, call it whatever you want. And you don't have to be sitting down to do it. You're there all the time. You focus your awareness on your being. How do you do that? You start having a thought. Instead of getting all involved in the thought, you remind yourself that it is you who's watching the thought. You start feeling an emotion start to come up. It comes up from inside your gut. You can feel it, nervousness or anxiety or jealousy or fear or attraction or repulsion. You feel these things start. You remind yourself, who is experiencing this? I am the one who's feeling this start to happen. And you put more of your consciousness, more of your focus on the fact that you exist, on the innermost sense of being, than you do on the emotion. When you start to feel anger, do you care more about the anger, or do you care more about the fact that you're experiencing the anger? It's just another thing that you're experiencing. Eventually, if you grow deep inside yourself, you couldn't care less what's going on down there. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's in ecstasy, sometimes it's depressed, sometimes it feels anger, sometimes it feels love. Well, sometimes the weather's nice and sometimes it's not. A wise being starts to look at all the changes that are going on inside themselves as inner weather. Sometimes it's stormy, sometimes it's balmy, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. So what? We handle the weather outside, we go about our business. Eventually, you will realize your emotions come and go. They're not something to get all involved in. How do you do that? By remembering that you are the one that's experiencing these things. What happens if you do that? The more time you spend sitting in self, sitting in the innermost aspect of your awareness of being, you will start to feel a strength open up inside of you. A strength that most people aren't aware of. Once in a while, they'll feel it during their life. When they open up a lot, they feel very strong. That strength is there all the time. It is the strength of your soul, the strength of your spirit, the strength of your being. You lose it because you leave it by getting all involved in your thoughts, emotions, and the outside world. The more you maintain your center of consciousness, your center of awareness of being, the more that strength will never leave you. You will just feel deep inside your being this tremendous flow of strength, of upward liftment, no matter what's going on. If you don't leave it, it doesn't leave you. And you leave it by getting involved in this thoughts, emotions, and outside world. So you just make a choice. Am I more interested in maintaining my innermost being, where there's this feeling of strength and well-being, natural, spontaneous well-being? You don't need anything. It doesn't make any difference what's going on outside. You can feel fine inside. Your emotions won't always feel fine. Your mind won't always look like it's talking fine. And the world sure as heck ain't going to always unfold fine. But you can always be fine. You can attain a state within your being that is so centered, so strong, that nothing will ever, ever, ever take that away from you. Nothing. Nothing. That is your soul. That is what it means to live within spirit, to live within your innermost being. And it's easy. You just do it by remaining aware that you are the one that's aware of all these other things that keep changing. If you spend enough time in that place, in a moment we'll talk about how you live your everyday life while doing that. If you spend enough time in that place, not only will you start to feel this strength, but you will literally start to feel this tremendous love well up inside of you. Spontaneous, unconditional, and unexplainable. You just feel all this warmth and love and well-being open up inside of you. And at some point you realize that is what's inside of me. Yes, there's fear and there's insecurity and there's all those things, but those are emotions. Those are down below me and I happen to be watching them. But inside the essence of where I sit, my own being, there is tremendous love. There is tremendous peace. There's a tremendous sense of spontaneous well-being that can never be touched or taken away by anybody or anything in this world. But you can give it away. You give it away by leaving it. So the more you come back to the center of self, to the center of essence of being, the more you feel the natural, spontaneous spiritual energies open up inside of you, and they never stop. No matter what state you achieve, no matter how high it sounds, it's nothing. Because it just goes further. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Your inner being, your consciousness, the essence of where you look out from, if you will, has no end. It just goes back for all of infinity. Just like the universe you look at in front of you is infinite, it goes on forever in every direction, the universe inside of you is infinite. There is no end to it. It stretches on for inner infinity. And if you center and relax into it, instead of getting all involved in your emotions, your thoughts, and this little petty being who's scared of everything, which is your personal self, your psyche, you can drink of that energy all the time. And we started by saying that your everyday life, minute to minute, of every single thing you're doing is in truth your path. It is the essence of your spiritual journey. Why? If the truth is it's inside, and you can come into that by not getting all involved in mind, emotions, and what's going on around you, then why don't you just go out to a cave somewhere and not interact? Because 99.9999999% of the people that ever went to a cave would drive themselves crazy, because it's so neurotic inside that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere. So what happens is you walk out into life and you notice that almost every minute of every day something bothers you. Almost every minute of every day something bothers you. There's something somebody says, there's something that you see, there's something you think of, something gets these emotions, gets this heart, gets this mind going until it just gets weird. That is why life is your teacher. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to utilize every moment of your life to learn to not have that happen. It's not a matter of going away from that and trying to escape it or renounce it. People talk about renunciation. It doesn't work. We've discussed that before. You can't push the world away or push your thoughts away or push your emotions away and claim that you're sitting in spirit. If you push your emotions away, if you push your mind away, if you push the world away, you're classically suppressing. You're having to use your energy of spirit. It's your being, your essence of being that's pushing, and you're holding things down. Well, those things don't go away. They just stay waiting to come back up because they were trying to express themselves and you push them away. So renunciation doesn't work. And it doesn't work to go out there and try to make the world be the way you need it to be okay, because you will never succeed and no one has ever succeeded. And even if you were to get it together a little bit the way you want it would keep changing. It doesn't ever sit still. It doesn't ever behave. You wish you could say, just stay where I put you and stop it, all right? You can't define the way you need it in order to be okay and then try to make the world be that way so that you can be okay. Because that's where all the disharmony comes from. Every person wants everything to be different because they're all different inside. And so if you define how you need it to be for you to be okay, you're going to compete with everybody else the way they need it to be for them to be okay. And it just becomes a war out there. It becomes a ridiculous situation. You have to be okay no matter what. It's called unconditional well-being, not conditional. Conditional means I'm okay as long as he does this and she does this and he doesn't do that. And you get that together, under those conditions, I'm okay. If anything changes, I'm not okay. And if you notice, it keeps changing. And so you're never okay. You've never been okay. Most people have never, ever been okay. Like that. They have never, ever experienced a true state of complete well-being. And if they do, it lasts for 2 seconds. Then something changes. It's because you're not okay inside, because you haven't found your center of self. And then when you find your center of self, you're going to notice your mind is not okay and your emotions are not okay, and they get all stirred up because of the changes that are taking place in the world. World changes, emotions change, etc., like we said. So what do? You stop playing that game. You stay in the world. You don't leave the world. You stay in the world. You stay in your job. You stay every single thing. You just stay there. Why? It's so tumultuous. Well, it shouldn't be. Why? There's all these things I don't like, and there's all these ways that people are. There's always going to be that. Always. There's not a chance in the world that the world will ever match what your mind and your emotions want. Your mind and your emotions are just the result of all the things that ever happened to you over your life. Good things, bad things, molded the way you think and the way you feel. Why would the world today match those? Those are your past. Those all happened in your particular past, where you were and what your mother did and father did and your girlfriend did and boyfriend did. That's what molded you, isn't it? That's why your mind likes what it likes and doesn't like what it doesn't like, and why it thinks the way it thinks. If I all of a sudden then pick you up and put you in France today, what does France know about that? Nothing. What do today's atoms know about what was put inside of you 10 years ago or 20 years ago or anything like that? The answer is nothing. So the world outside will never, ever, ever match what is going on inside of you. What is going on inside of you is the remnants of your past, and everyone's is different. Yet we all interact in the same world. So it's like a losing battle to expect the world to be the way you need it to be for you to be okay. That's what everyone's doing, trying to make everybody and everything be the way they need it to be so they feel it's right. A wise being doesn't do that. A wise being wakes up and says, there's no way in the world that world's matching what's going on in here. Hey, you live in there. Would you really want the world to match what's going on in there? Why don't you take an honest look at it? No, I don't think so. It's not doing so well in there, and I don't think everybody in this world should match what that needs to be okay. And it can't anyways, because it doesn't know how to do that, and I can't tell it, and plus which everybody else wants it to be a different way all the time anyways, don't they? So you just catch on. That's the problem. The problem is you're trying to be okay by making the world match your emotions and your mind. Your psyche is like your God. It runs everything. You have to give up on that. And so you pull back into the self, into your center of being. You look at your psyche as weather, and you look at the world as reality. And you say, that world is not going to match what is going on inside my psyche, and I don't care. Instead, I would rather have the psyche calm down, cool it, become comfortable with the world as it unfolds, and if it can't, I don't have to get involved in it. I can sit back in the center of self and notice, oh, this person said something because they were having a bad day, and it disturbed the remnants of my psyche. For God's sakes, how many times does something disturb the remnants of your psyche? Like every 10 seconds. You get to the point where you don't care. You're just not willing to buy in to the fact that the world is supposed to match your psyche. You know, if you have a bruise on your arm and you're walking down the street, things bump into it. You don't yell at everybody. You're the one who's got the bruise on your arm. You just kind of do the best you can. It is just like that with your psyche. You're walking around this world, bumping into everybody, and they're bumping into you, making the psyche go crazy, right? You get to the point where you just finally say to yourself, I don't care. I'm not buying into this. If somebody bumps into the psyche and it gets weird, I'll treat it like somebody bumping into a bruise. I will not get all involved and make a big deal out of it and think that somehow that psyche is me. The psyche is not you. You are the one who experiences it. So that's how you use everyday life. Everyday life is like a spotlight that shows you where you're not. Because you should be able to walk through this world with nobody bothering you. It's that simple. You are just in your innermost being, sitting on a planet, spinning around in the middle of nowheres, and you'll only be here for a few years. That's how a wise being thinks. I'm only alive for this period of time, and I was put on a little planet spinning around in the middle of absolute infinite space, and heck, if I'm going to live my entire life freaked out. All right? I'm not going to live my entire life having everything that's going on this planet bother me, and then lay down on my deathbed and be afraid to die. A wise being sits there and says, I'm not going to let anything bother me. I'm not going to let anything bother me. I'm not going to go out there and try and change everything. I'm just going to change myself to where my seat of consciousness is deep enough inside to where I'm not buying in to the sickness of my psyche, to the disturbances of my psyche. You get to the point where you look at every other human being and say, the last thing in the world that as a caring being I'm going to do to you is make you serve my psyche. My psyche is just the sum of all my past experiences. It's a mess. I have enough trouble dealing with it myself. Heck, if you have to deal with it. And you think that way about your wife, your husband, your children, every single person. You don't say it out loud. You don't want to say it out loud. But inside, you just say to yourself, I am no longer going to hold anyone on this earth, including God, anyone, responsible for my psyche. Just leave it alone. Just let it make the noise it needs to make and watch it. But don't get all caught up in it. Don't get involved in it. And what you will see is faster than you think it will go away. What does that mean? If you don't buy into its melodrama, it stops throwing its tantrums. If you buy into its melodrama, its tantrums get worse, just like a kid. If it starts throwing a tantrum about somebody didn't say hello, or somebody wore this, or somebody didn't do that, or whatever it is, and it starts throwing that tantrum, you just pull back into the self and you watch. You just quietly watch, and you let it pass. If you do that a few times, it will stop throwing that tantrum. Well, maybe a few hundred times. It has quite a habit of throwing tantrums, all right? But if you do not feed it, it will quiet down. That's just the way it works. If you get involved in it and talk to everybody about it and make a big melodrama out of it, you reinforce those patterns. It's straight psychology. It's typical psychology. True spirituality is in harmony with all of science, all of psychology, every single religion, and all of your life. Truth is truth. It fits everywhere. So you just treat it like you would treat a child. You treat your own psyche like you treat a child. You don't be hard on it. You just use child psychology with it. If it's throwing tantrums, you just pull back into the self. You just sit there. Don't touch it. Don't push it away. But also don't get on its side. If you side with it, it will take all of your energy and you will continue to have to feed it. Over time, little by little, as you go through the different everyday experiences of your life, you are invariably going to find that you're doing better. That all of a sudden you can go to work and have fun. Instead of going to work and get all uptight or be afraid of what people think or afraid that somebody will criticize something you do or that somebody will get the raise and you don't. You can go home and enjoy your experience at home. Not be afraid that the kid got the C and this person did this. Like, there's going to be a billion things that go on every day of your life and nothing's going to stop it. Nothing. The question is not whether they're going to go on. They're going to go on. The question is, can you stay at peace in harmony within your being and deal with them from that place. Instead of dealing them from a place of reactiveness, a place of manipulation. In essence, most people, when they deal with a problem or a situation outside, they're not dealing with the problem or situation. They're dealing with themselves. They're not even trying to deal with the problem or the situation. The kid comes home and gets a C on a report card. Most people, parents and stuff, feel fear that they didn't do a good job and what's going to happen to the kid, and just literally they have a problem within themselves and they end up dealing with the child based on their own problem instead of literally being at peace within themselves and saying, okay, what's the best way for this kid for me to deal with this? It's more what's the best way for me. How do I feel best? Well, I was firm. I tried. I got to at least be able to tell people that I was a good parent. It's sad. People are dealing with themselves. They're not dealing with the outer situations. When you come into harmony with yourself, you don't have to do that because you don't have a problem anymore. I would love for every person to reach a state where the peace that they're experiencing is independent of what is going on in this world. Then when things take place in this world, of course you deal with them. It is not a matter of pushing them away or pulling yourself away. You deal with them in the same way as you play basketball or football or you play an instrument or you do a hobby. This is your job. Your job is to deal with them. You're bringing up a kid, that's your job. You're going to school, that's your job. You go to work, that's your job. You do it because it's fun. You do it because it's your job. You're on a planet spinning in the middle of nowheres, and you got to have something to do, otherwise it gets boring. That's what you do. You don't do it in order to make yourself be okay. You don't go to work to earn money. And you don't earn money to buy the house. And you don't buy the house in order to impress people. You don't do the things you're doing in order that you'll be okay. It's actually sad to see that people do that. You play the game because it's fun. You play the game because it's your life. This is your life. Your life is ticking away. Are you living it? Or are you waiting to live it? Or are you afraid to live it? Eventually you get to the point where all you're doing every minute of every day is living your life. That's all you're doing. You're doing the best you can for the same reason that people play football the best they can. Because it's a sport and it's fun and you put your heart and soul into it. And imagine if you lived every minute of your life that way. Everything you did, every single thing. You would never get bothered by anything. If something comes up, it's not scary. It's just a situation to deal with. Right, wrong, indifferent, doesn't matter. All kinds of things go on in this world. Justice, injustice, fairness, unfairness. It's just what it is. You have to learn to be in harmony with it. You have to learn to not let it bother you. But not by suppressing. Literally by opposite, by opening. You let life come in and you let it pass through. And if it hits something in between, you let that go. As you empty, more and more life is capable of coming into you and passing through you, and you're capable of dealing with it from a centered position, from a place of clarity. That is life and that is spirituality. And if you do that, more and more, I've often said to you, if you are truly on a spiritual path, truly, then every single day you're a different person than you were the day before. You are not the same person. You went through experiences today that challenged your resolve to letting go of your psyche that you hadn't dealt with before. Happens all the time. As you choose soul over psyche, as you choose innermost being, self, consciousness, awareness of being over psyche, the psyche will thin out. Even if it's the most imperceivable small amount, every day there's less of it. You want less, believe me. The less psyche you can have, the more spirit you can have. The more psyche you have, the less spirit you have, because it's all sucked into the psyche. And this is your formula. One of the great saints of India said, man minus mind equals God. All right? As you let go of your inner mess, you become filled with your inner beauty. As you cling to your inner mess, you get less and less. The shadow of your inner mess blots out your true being. Your true being is very beautiful. Everybody's true being is very, very beautiful. No matter what they've ever done, no matter whatever happened, it doesn't make any difference. It's like pure, bright sunlight shining behind all that mess. But while you're involved with the mess, you don't see it. And then you end up interacting with the world based upon your mess. So eventually you have to decide, which way do you want to live? Do you want to commit yourself to your psyche, which you know you live in there, is not the healthiest thing around, it's a mess. Do you want to commit yourself to that mess and then try to make every person, place, or thing outside of you be the way you need them to be for you to be relatively okay. You'll never be absolutely okay. You'll just be, it was better than yesterday. Or do you want to take a step back into your true being, the one who's in there, you're in there, you know what I'm talking about. Take a step back into you, look at your psyche, and say, no, I am not going to hold the world responsible for my inner problem. I'm going to let go of my inner problem. I'm just going to release it. I'm not going to get involved in it. If you do not get involved with it, I promise you, I'll sign a guarantee. If you do not get involved with it, it will go away. It will just start to fall away. If you get involved with it, I'll sign another guarantee. It will never go away. Because it's you who's holding it together. If somebody says something that bothers you and you have a thought, you just have a thought. Why did he say that? He didn't have to say that, Mike. If you just say, all right, fine, he said it. Just relax. Cool it. Get involved with something else. Just let go. It will go. It'll be gone. If instead you keep getting involved in it, it may never go away. You may never talk to that person again. You could make the biggest melodrama out of the tiniest thing that ever was to where it just affects your whole life. You did that. Don't say that person did that. You did that. They did what they did, but you're the one who's supposed to be able to process this world. You are the highest species on this planet. You're supposed to be the most adaptable, evolved species. Are you telling me you can't handle life? Because that's what you're saying. You can't handle that somebody died. You can't handle that somebody else, got the raise. You can't handle that this took place. You can't handle what this person said. Is that true? You can't handle life. That's how they should talk to you. You should be able to handle life. You should be able to handle every single thing that happens to you. Once you can handle it, then deal with it. And you'll find the vast majority of the time there's nothing to deal with. Right? That if you can handle it, it's over. And the next thing you'll know, you'll be filled with energy, and you'll be filled with clarity, and you'll be filled with light, because you're not wasting it on your psyche. So that is your choice. Now remember that in the morning, remember in the afternoon, remember it at night. Now you see why I started by saying that when you get to the point that every minute of every day is part of your spiritual journey, this is how you're living. Nothing can not be for your growth, because you're using everything for your liberation. When you live like that, life becomes meaningful. It is freeing you. It's helping you. It purifies your heart. It purifies your mind. And it awakens your deeper inner spirit. If you live the other way, life can really be a mess. It can make a real psychological and external mess. So you decide. It's your life. What do you want to do with it? Chakra.